Hi, and welcome to the next episode of The Cleanup Step, sponsored by Comic Collector Shop in the wonderful city of Sunnyvale, California. This is Justin speaking. I'll be your host today, and I'm with Mike from previous podcasts, and a new person on our podcast, Mikey Yu. Say hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
So on this episode, we'll be talking about certain newer topics, certain fun topics for lore-wise that we brought Mikey in because Mikey's a huge Vorthos. So we'll begin with our question of the week. What is your favorite color out of the 5 colors in Magic and why? Do you guys want to? Who wants to start?
I'll start. So I am a big fan of white. And that is because I think white has the most of everything. It doesn't do anything really fantastically, but it doesn't have any of the major shortfallings that black does, where black and red have no enchantment removal. And I think Nevernal's Disc is just about the only thing in all the formats. Whereas white does have stuff like Divine Offering, which isn't great, but it isn't bad either. So, and it gives me lots of little humans, and I like the idea of humans overcoming the odds and winning everything. What about you, Mikey?
When I started playing Magic, I started out with white and red because that's all that I knew, and they were pretty linear. But as I played the other colors and got a taste for all of the colors, black definitely stands out as my favorite color. For gameplay, it does a lot of things well. You've got card draw. You've got creature removal. It's one of the best colors for creature removal. It's got a lot of big threats, good recursion in the graveyard. The only thing that it has trouble with are enchantments and artifacts. But as a Vorthos, I really like the fact that black will sacrifice anything to get what it wants, and it's very dominant that way. And it's aggressive, and it knows what it wants. It has a purpose. So that's why I like black.
Speaking of aggressive and knowing what you want, I do believe someone competed competitively at GP, and we promised the listeners that we would talk about the GP.
Well, before we get to that topic, I'd like to echo
you have
my favorite color.
Aggressive, get whatever I want. Get on with the show.
This will be pretty short. I'm actually with Mikey here. When I first started, I was a big fan of red-white. It seemed very goal-oriented. You just turn things sideways and try to kill him as quick as possible. Longer I've played, I'm actually a huge fan of black, focusing a little bit on blue as well. I feel that black and blue together, the color combination has a lot of strengths and weaknesses that they cover each other. Black has a lot of the card draw, a little bit of aggro, a little bit of life gain, jack of all trades. And blue has the counter magic, the bounce, just the control aspect. So both of them together create a very strong control color. So I'm actually a big fan of black, a little bit of blue, a little distant in the off to the wayside, a little bit of white. So yeah. So I'm a big fan of Esper colors. Yeah. But yeah, so the GP, going back to the topic on hand, the GP was a few weeks ago.
GP Santa Clara.
GP Santa Clara to be more exact, yeah. Me, some other guys from the shop, and Mikey, actually, we all were there. Unfortunately, Michael had to keep track of the shop, so he was unable to make it.
I never get to do anything fun.
But, I competed along with some other regulars of the shop. We created a team, and another host, Kyle, also competed, but we'll let him tell his side of the story. Mike actually went for a little bit more of the, let's say, casual side. He did compete in a few things. Would you like to tell us about that a little bit?
So the GP was in Santa Clara at the convention center. And if you've never been to a GP, if you've ever been to a convention, like an anime convention, it was basically a convention for Magic with artists that were there. There were some vendors, a lot of good deals on singles. They were selling different products. There were competitive events. And I went there more just to see what the side events were like, and because I've never been to a GP before. And I only competed on Sunday. I went Saturday and Sunday in the Pauper event. I made a Pauper deck, and the professor was there. I got to meet him finally, which was really cool. But as the non-competitive player I am, the Popper was really cool. I got to talk shop with Popper players about the meta, why they got into Popper, just generally, what they liked about their GP experience. And I actually got to play in my second round right next to the professor, and he was just super gracious. He's just like what everybody says that he is. He's very down to earth, takes the time to meet the fans, has a real conversation with you. So that was a good experience. I got to get some of my cards signed, RK Post, and let's see, I believe there was Jason, Felix, and some other artists were there.
Mark Teden.
Luis Lesciato, yeah.
Yeah, and he did...
Good lineup.
Yeah, great lineup. And they were all super gracious. They talked about their craft. They had custom tokens, which I picked up from RK Post. He signed his stuff for free, but I supported him by buying some wood-etched tokens that were really cool.
They're really nice.
Yeah, they're way better than the paper tokens.
We'll see if we can get a picture and put it up so that everybody can take a look at them. But there's some pretty sweet tokens.
Yeah. So the Popper event, how did that go?
I was 3 rounds. It was we registered, and you got a foil Mutavault, and you got double ticks, and the ticks were redeemable for prizes on the prize wall, which had singles, it had packs, it had sealed product, it had playmats.
Mutavault, that Popper staple.
Yeah,
it was a GP-wide
I saw
promo.
some people complaining about it, and I'm like, dude, you're gonna complain about getting a free Mutavault with your entry? Come on. Like, I know it's not Popper legal, but still, you can trade that for an entire Popper deck pretty much.
Yeah, it's very true. So it was 3 rounds, and I went 1-2. I was playing Mono Red Burn. The mana base for that is very easy. It's very easy for me to pilot in a meta that I'm not familiar with. I faced round 1. I faced green-black Dredge, and... Oh, no, I'm sorry. I faced the mirror match, which is also Mono Red Burn, and lost. And then in round 2, I got paired down and faced green black Dredge and eked that one out. And then in round 3, I faced Boggles, which was good that I tested against Justin because he was running essentially the same deck that I faced. It was a very close match. But once he put down any kind of life gain, I basically had to scoop because red can't race that. So I went 1-2. All my opponents were really nice. I had a good time. Just spent a lot of time hanging out with my other Magic friends from the shop and playing a few Commander games on the side too.
I hear it was a really big event too. What was it, like 180 something people?
Yeah, 180 people turned out. The professor was there.
I believe it was the first official Popper tournament ever.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty big deal. Like, I do hope, like, 3 rounds is a little unfortunate, and I do hope in the future they increase it to more rounds, make it like a whole day thing. That'd be cool. But yeah, I actually put together a deck just for the event. I didn't really think much of it, and when I first heard of Popper, I'm like, oh, it's just a silly little format. You just play commons. It really took me off guard how competitive the format was. Like, you don't think of like commons and think of, power, but then you realize Gush is a common, Counterspell's a common, Brainstorm's a common, Lightning Bolt's a common. Like, you can make Tron in Popper, you can make Affinity in Popper. There's a lot of really strong archetypes that you can play in Popper. So I mean, I built Bogles because it's the cheapest deck I can find, and also it's really easy to pilot, so I can pilot it half asleep. But I ended up really enjoying it. Yeah, I entered just because I didn't do too well in the main event, but I did have a lot of fun. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see why they did it as 3 rounds. Just from the merchant side, is like, you don't know it's gonna be a popular event necessarily, but I can, like, there was a definite uptick that the week before we had a bunch of people coming in looking for Popper staples, asking if we had Gushes, Doomblades, that kind of stuff. Delver of Secrets was a really popular one people were looking for, because it definitely did light a fire. It's one of those things that most people just toss their commons, and I mean, why not? They're commons, but you can do some really interesting stuff with it. I know when I was running Popper, I was running an Esper control deck that's whole point was to slow down my opponent enough that I could beat in their face with 2/1/1s from Rally, the 2-drop instant speed create 2/1/1s that first premiered in Mirrodin, and then or use retrace on. It's not called to mind. It's the
Raven's
2
Grind?
black, 1 colorless. They lose 2, you gain 2. So discard another. You discard a land once it's in the graveyard, pay its cost again, and you drain them again. So I just kept using Lost Thoughts. No, it's not Lost Thoughts. Man, I am just not sure of my card names right now. It was 1 blue, 1 colorless, counter a spell, put it on top of their library instead of putting it into their graveyard.
Memory lapse.
Memory Lapse, which is what I just had. So I kept using Memory Lapse Call to Arms to slow them down, which is the token spell, and then I would just drain them for life over and over again. And it was not a fast deck. It was not a deck that did very well, but it was super fun to put together.
That's what I did notice about Pauper. It hasn't been broken yet like other formats. So the format's just wide open for a lot of people to bring homebrews. Like a regular at the shop, he was in a previous podcast, Albert just built a green-black Aristocrats deck. And I know there is already a green-black Aristocrats deck out there that is doing fairly well in the Pauper scene. But he built his own brew, and it actually ended up doing really well against some of the other meta decks that were being played at the shop. So that's what really surprised me, is Pauper hasn't been solved yet.
Yeah.
Like, I know a lot of people's, their big concerns is like, now that it's taking off, a lot of the old cards like Gorilla Shaman and Oubliette are going to go up in price even more. But what I was thinking is like, wouldn't it be interesting if Wizards, instead of giving us the promo tokens, instead give us back FNM promos, but print Pauper staples as FNM promos.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a really interesting idea. Like, it'd be like printing a Oubliette as an FNM promo. Yeah, it's not standard playable, but man, that would just tank the price of Oubliette right now.
Definitely.
Or something like Gorilla Shaman, which is a huge important card in sideboards and Pauper.
For some of the standard staples that they would print, I do agree they definitely need to go back to printing cards. My fear for that would be for the stores that are holding on to any kind of stock of them.
Yeah.
That's a lot of lost money.
Yeah.
But the upside is there's not going to be as many people as like we saw with Fatal Push trying to scum all the smaller stores to get a copy of it by just taking the top. Although, oh man, there's so many stories I want to tell about that. The weeks we were running Fatal Push and the guys who thought they could scoop everything, and then I stuck them in the experienced players' pods. Okay, that's off topic.
Yeah. But just getting a foil opt would be cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Opt would be awesome, or being able to get a foil alternate art. Raise the Alarm, which is the card I was actually talking about, not Rally the Soldiers or whatever I said last time.
Yeah, like maybe a foil like Lava Spike.
Like,
I don't think that's been
none of these cards are any that expensive, but it'd be nice to get foil alternate printings of them.
Yeah, and you could also do more of a lot of the staples. You could potentially do a participation card and then do a top 8 card for stores where they hadn't done that previously. Normally I get 10 per week to hand out, right? But if they did instead like Doomblade alternate art, or they even just did a foil Doomblade with the little promo star in the set symbol, and then they did an alternate art Delver of Secrets.
Ooh,
right?
That'd be cool.
Like, that would be awesome, and you just have the alt art be the top 8, and you have the other one be foil.
I mean, that might get some of those Fatal Push grinders back.
Yeah, but honestly, I don't think it would be that many, because it's cool, but I don't know.
Yeah. Delver's not as much as Fatal Push is.
Delver's not played as much in any other format,
Well,
so you'd be getting weird Pauper
It doesn't really
grinders.
see play in Modern too much, but it sees a lot of play in Legacy. Yeah, decent amount of play. And I don't know about Vintage, but I assume it does okay in Vintage as well.
But we're getting a little off topic. Back to the GP, which is what we were supposed to be talking about. Rules be damned! Screw the money. Screw the rules. I have money. I don't. Anyways, so yeah, GPs are definitely a lot of fun to go to.
Yeah.
It's a convention. I really want to go to one. One of these days I'll get to. I'm hoping maybe one of these days we can actually get out there as a vendor. Although I would feel very inadequate staring at other men's wares, if you know what I'm saying. They have scalding tarts.
This was also my first GP, and I ended up really enjoying it. I am not new to the convention circuit. I've been to many different kinds of conventions, anime, gaming, tech conventions, and whatnot. But it was interesting just walking around and seeing internet personalities I follow in the flesh. Like, meeting Marshall Sutcliffe and meeting the professor, or meeting Dana Fisher. And these names I've heard of and these people I've seen online but I haven't met in person until the GP.
Yeah.
But also competing in the main event. I'm a very competitive person by nature, and I did sort of miss the old competition days of when I was competing in Pokemon and other games. So it was really nice being in a competitive atmosphere again. So yeah, I definitely am interested in going to another one.
The main event, that was Team Trios, right?
Yes, yeah. So what Team Trios is you have yourself and 2 other players as a team of 3, and this specific GP, the Team Trio event, was each person in your team would be competing in a different format. So I was our team's standard player. We had a Thomas, one of my friends, was a modern player. Another regular at the shop, Min, was our legacy player. So we all chose our decks, and during the games and during sideboarding and whatnot, you're allowed to talk to your teammates, which I thought was really cool, which is unlike normal Magic games. It felt more like an esport kind of situation where you're actually cooperating as a team and swapping strategies and getting sideboarding advice from your teammates. So it was really interesting, and I do hope that they explore the Team Trio format in more tournaments. I feel that it was a very interesting way of playing Magic, and it might be my preferred way of playing Magic.
Cool. Speaking of swapping up strategies and all of that fun jazz, we've got Bannings. They dropped on Monday, last Monday,
right.
yesterday, Monday.
Yeah.
This is
Thank God.
yeah.
Because, oh my God, so I took Teamer Energy to the GP unwillingly. Because I knew Teamer Energy is the best deck in the format, but I really didn't want to play Teamer Energy. But it was sort of the, if you do it, you're at least have a chance of winning. If you don't, you have a less chance of winning. I really wanted to play Grixis Thopters, which is a deck that Channel Fireball sort of showed off, because it has a very good teamer matchup. The problem is it has a bad matchup against everything else. It loses pretty hard to Pummeler. It loses pretty hard to Mono Red. And it also goes to time a lot. And I know in an 8-round tournament, that's something I don't want to be doing every round.
You want it to be somebody else's fault that there's an extra 10 minutes stacked onto this.
So despite it being the deck I wanted to take, I ended up taking Teamer Energy just because I had the best chance of doing well with it.
And you guys did pretty well. You were 3-0.
We were 3-0. Yeah, unfortunately, something happened where it's considered a drop on the tournament report, but in one of the matchups in our 4th round, actually, I made a bit of a mistake, and we ended up getting DQ'd for it, unfortunately. And it was a bit my fault, and a little bit of my opponent being a bit of a jerk, because our legacy player and our modern player already won, and it didn't matter what my match result would be. But my opponent argued with the judge to the point that we were given a disqualification.
What was the issue?
Check your sideboards, kid.
Yeah, so me being unfamiliar with the Teamer Energy deck wasn't too sure with what the sideboard looked like. So I ended up de-sideboarding incorrectly after the 3rd round, going into the 4th round, and my opponent called the judge over to read over my deck list, and they found a discrepancy in my main deck and my sideboard.
Which that just looks bad.
It does look bad, and I understand. It's something I should have checked a little bit more. and my teammates weren't too happy about it. We were doing actually really well. It was quite an experience. We were sitting next to like really big names like Huey Jensen and Reed Duke and Ben Stark. We were sitting at the same tables as them, right next to them. So it was a really interesting experience where we're with the big boys. We're the only people at those tables not wearing sponsored jerseys. So it was really cool being up there, but man, I made a huge mistake and it ended up costing us the event.
And I do understand where the other guy is coming from. I personally, if it had gotten kicked up, if it was me head judge, I don't think I would have done it because while your play could be argued as, I know you didn't do it intentionally, but I can understand why he may think it might have been intentional.
And I understand.
If I were the judge in that position, it would also be fairly clear the only reason this is getting kicked up is because otherwise they get a loss on their record. Which was it? Kyle did the math out on that and basically said no. If it actually would have been better for them to get the loss because their record would have been stronger if they had won the following round. So in the end, it didn't end up mattering.
Yeah. They ended up not making day 2 either, the opponents. And we did get a redemption the day afterwards because we entered a team trio side event going undefeated.
Very
cool.
So
we got a redemption, we proved ourselves, and we did well the next day. So.
Yeah.
And it was also full of great memories. We met some great people. We met some less nice people, but it was still a fun experience overall. Like, I really enjoyed playing in the GP, playing in the specific team trio event. It's something that I will remember from in times to come, and it makes me more excited to go into more GPs in the future.
So the things banned, other than Justin,
Yeah.
are Attune with Aether, Rogue Refiner, Rampaging Ferocidon, and Ramunap maps.
Ramunap
Ruins.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wow. All right. That was...
So
I swear English is my first language.
So I understand. Attune with the Aether and Rogue Refiner, very, very strong cards in Teamer Energy. And if they were to nerf Teamer Energy that hard, of course, Mono Red, Ramunap Red would become the next big deck in the format.
Right.
So they preemptively banned Ramunap Ruins and Rampaging Ferocidon, sort of like what they did with they did that with Reflector Mage about half a year ago.
Yeah.
They did a ban on Reflector Mage just because they felt that Blue-White Flash should be the biggest deck in the format after the Marvel banning.
Yeah.
So it's understandable.
I think Smuggler's Copter got in.
Yeah,
banned in
Smuggler's
that same-
Copter got hit too because he's very strong in the Blue-White Flash deck.
Personally, what I would have liked to see them do, and this is not as a standard player, so take this with a grain of salt, but I would have preferred to actually see them unban a couple of the cards that they had previously banned to attempt to balance out the format that way by reintroducing a deck that had previously been considered oppressive, because they even put in their notes as to the official reason why they banned Rampaging Ferocidon is because it prevents you from gaining life, and when creatures enter the battlefield, it deals damage to their
That would have
controller,
been interesting too, yeah.
which would have cut down on Saheeli, but it's
it would've
one
hit
dominant
Saheeli.
deck.
The problem with doing that though was it would also unban Aetherworks Marvel, which is a fairly strong card. Like getting let's look at the best. After the Eldrazi's rotate, the next best target for Aetherworks Marvel would probably be a Nico Bolas. Nico Bolas, maybe one of the big dinos, but preferably I'm assuming Nico Bolas. Like Grixis Energy probably would be a really good deck for that. And I think landing a Nico Bolas on turn 4 is just not okay.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
8 mana for stuff on turn 4 is...
And especially with the 4 abilities he has, and all four of them are incredibly oppressive abilities.
Yeah.
I'm okay with Aetherworks staying banned, Aetherworks Marvel staying banned. It would have been interesting to see Saheeli unbanned, and then seeing Rampaging Ferocidon fight off the Saheeli decks.
Yeah, and the Saheeli decks would hopefully be outdoing the Temur Energy, rather than, because Saheeli's red-blue, so she could be added to it, but Felidar Sovereign, which was another big part of that combo, was white.
Yeah,
so
although
it wouldn't fit as well.
The Sovereign is the only thing that's banned. Saheeli never got banned.
Yeah, Healy never got banned. Felidar got banned.
Felidar got banned.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Saheeli was still relevant, but like
Yeah.
you said, you'd have to be playing Jeskai.
Although-
if you're gonna play the combo.
I think
Unless
the
you did
biggest
core
problem,
color.
the biggest menace, if you kept Aetherworks banned, I think the biggest menace in that format would probably be Mardu vehicles, because they get Smuggler's Copter back.
True. Yeah, that would have
Yeah.
been
So,
pretty
yeah.
dangerous.
What R&D needs to do is maybe test their sets a little bit more.
Well, I don't think it's a lack of testing their sets because
Yeah.
again, going back to the wording on Rampaging Ferocidon and Ramanap Ruins is they had put it in there with the idea being that they'd still be dealing with Saheeli and so they had kind of accounted for it.
Yeah.
Some stuff had escaped
Yeah.
testing, which always happens.
I don't like. I think Ferocidon could have stayed in standard. I don't really feel it should have been banned.
Yeah.
Mainly because it is a 3/3 that dies to a lot of removal in the format. I do agree with Ramanov Ruins getting banned though. That it gave Mono Red an extremely powerful late game, with Bomat Courier refilling their hand and Ramanov Ruins getting in for the last like 8 points of damage because you run 4 ruins, you get 8 points of damage. That's pretty much like you starting off with half your life total against Mono Red.
Yeah.
And Ramanov Ruins was just such a strong and oppressive card in our current standard meta game. I'm okay with that getting banned. I don't know how Ferocidon would have been if it was left unbanned. I think it could have been left unbanned, just because there is a lot of go wide decks doing fairly well, I think, right now. So
Right.
Yeah. I don't know.
and most red decks were only using it in the sideboard.
I think there's a possibility we're gonna see a problem with Polyraptor.
You're still on the Polyraptor train.
I love Polyraptor.
Oh my
man.
god.
Hey, it's that or Merfolk. Merfolk have been going
Yeah.
crazy.
Did you see the newest standings for the PPTQ?
I haven't yet.
Okay, Merfolk actually didn't even crack the top cut.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was. I think what ended up winning was Mardu Vehicles, and then the second place deck was Grixis Energy.
You would not be able to tell from the card prices, man. The
Yeah.
friggin' Jade Light Ranger is $11
Jade Light Ranger is seeing a lot of play in non-Merfolk decks.
Really? Oh yeah, I guess that makes
Yeah,
sense.
Black Green Constrictor is actually another very strong deck in the format right now,
yeah.
and it's seeing a 4 of in that deck, because with the Attune and the Rogue Refiner bannings, the Constrictor deck ended up taking out the entire energy package and replacing it with Merfolk Branchwalker and Jade Light Ranger. And then adding more Gear Hulk, the green Gear Hulk, and adding more just 1/1 counter synergy.
Yeah.
I'm actually experimenting with Sultai still. Sultai one counters. I think Hadana's Climb is actually going to be end up being a very strong card in that deck, especially in conjunction with the Snake. So
Winding Constrictor.
Winding Constrictor, yeah. And Hadana's Climb, on your upkeep, you put a 1/1 counter on a creature, and if that creature has more than 3 counters, you flip it. And the flip side is pretty much just like a Xenagos, where it just buffs your creature, gives it flying. Just a lot of very
Isn't
good...
it? It's X, green, blue. It buffs the power and then gives it flying trample.
No, just flying.
Just flying. Okay.
But that's still super strong.
Yeah,
You turn your 4/4 Jade Light Ranger into an 8 something with flying. So,
oh yeah, and it's to both sides. It's
Yeah.
not to one. That's right.
So I think
and it's
Sultai,
for 3, not X. Yeah. It just doubles its power. Okay.
The only downside with Sultai was it lost the very consistent mana fixing that Attune gave.
Yeah.
But I'm completely okay with the Attune banning. It did stuff like in the energy decks, you were able to play a red-blue 3-drop on turn 3 into a double green 4-drop. And that shouldn't be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Consistently. It was able to do this consistently, and that shouldn't be okay.
The Bristling Hydra.
The Bristling Hydra, yeah. And that type of consistency that Attune with the Aether gave just is way too strong in compared to a lot of the tribal strategies that we were given with Ixalan. And I'm not even looking at Amonkhet, because Amonkhet didn't give us much other than a few like sweet cards here.
Scarab
and there.
God.
Yeah, it gave us Scarab God, gave us a Braid, stuff like that, but it wasn't as oppressive as a lot of the Kaladesh cards were.
I remember when Scarab God was $3.
Yeah. I mean, it's climbing back up.
No, it's already at like what, 20?
It dropped and then now it's climbing back up.
Yeah, I'm just because I remember when the set first came out, Scarab
Yeah.
God, Scorpion God. Scorpion God was at like 8. Scarab God was at like 3. It was nothing. Nobody wanted to run it, and now it's marketing for $28.95.
Yeah. So it dipped to like about $20 right before the bannings, and it's going back up now.
Yeah. Was anybody really concerned that that was going to get banned? I can't see it.
Not really. I heard the biggest concerns were most of the energy cards, like Rogue Refiner was on the short list, Attune at the Aether was on the short list, Long Tusk Cub, and Whirler Virtuoso. Those are the 4 cards that a lot of people were talking about online about if those were the front runners of getting banned. And I was actually really crossing my fingers that Rogue Refiner wasn't going to get hit because I
Too bad.
do like that card. I mean, not Rogue Refiner, Whirler Virtuoso.
Oh,
Because
okay.
it's super important in my Grixis deck. So I'm actually okay with the banning somewhat. It does make for a very interesting, diverse format. We'll see how long it takes to get solved. Because Saheeli Cat was, when it first came out, no one was really talking. Like, everyone was hyped about it. And then people tried different builds. Like, they put it in a control shell, didn't do well. And it wasn't until they put it in the Teamer Energy shell that it ended up doing really well. So I remember Saheeli jumped to like 20 for a weekend and then started trickling down until someone broke the combo and then it went back up. So we'll see how that does with Merfolk and Vampire Tribal synergies.
Yeah.
It's not seeing a lot of hype right now out of the first PPTQ, but all it needs is a good list and a pro running it really well, and it's gonna jump back up.
Kumena right now is big. I know that
Yeah.
the Merfolk Lord, and he's
Yeah.
I can't see him staying there. He's at like $20 right now.
I don't see him staying that high.
And
Yeah.
it's no, I just like he's
Yeah.
been very volatile
Yeah.
for the first weekend. He was
Yeah.
originally at 25, then he
Yeah.
went down to 14, which is where we sold him off. He's up to 20 now.
Yeah.
It's about 1950.
So I think 15 to 20 is where he's gonna eventually settle. He's like there's a lot of in the Merfolk deck. He is probably the strongest card in the deck. He's
Yeah.
very powerful. Like I remember I saw a video. It was actually Saffron Olive's video when he was testing the blue-green Merfolk in Standard, and every time he drew Kumena, he immediately gained advantage. He was able to draw like half his deck with just Kumena.
It is a lot of advantage for the draw stuff you
Yeah.
control, and he's hard to remove.
Yeah.
But I'm just,
Yeah.
I'm not.
Also, the
super
fact that you can
into
give a Merfolk unblockable, it lets you. I think people are playing Merfolk like an aggro deck right now, and that's not what you need to do. Like Settle the Wreckage blows you out. Like Settle the Wreckage is so good against the deck. What you need to do is swing in with half your team, the exact amount, and then leave the other half as card draw or as ways to power up your guys by tapping all 5.
I'm not like he may be the staple of the Merfolk deck, but I'm just
Yeah.
not super convinced the Merfolk deck is actually going to be doing all that fantastically for very long, because I don't see there. He's the staple. I don't really see any other, like Jade Light Ranger's okay, but
I
it's not
think-
great in a Merfolk.
I think there's
necessarily.
potential.
Yeah.
Because right now, the best, like, we don't have too much in the way of removal for that deck. Like, I see it a lot like how Zombies was about a year ago, the Mono Black Zombies deck, where it, like Kumena, they got Crypt Breaker, which was card draw. It was a lot of ways to pitch your zombies in the graveyard to make more tokens, stuff like that. So I do see, and that deck wasn't very good until someone came up with a list where they put a decent amount of removal, a good ratio, and a decent amount of aggressiveness to it. And I think that's what the Merfolk deck needs right now is a little bit of experimentation.
Yeah. We'll see what happens with it. I mean, hey, maybe Darmanaria will drop stuff in
Yeah.
there that makes it way better when we get back to that.
I think it's leagues better than the Vampire Tribal deck we have right now. So
Although there are other ways to introduce a little bit of variety into Standard, and I feel like we could do that. We had some experimentation with that with Unstable. Personally, I think that it would be really awesome, really intuitive to start seeing Trample like Super Death Ray, right? It would be really intuitive. It is a fairly intuitive idea, and it would be really cool to start seeing Trample on more instants and sorceries.
Like
where
damage
yeah.
spells, yeah.
How much better would Chandra's Wrath, the
Oh my
4
God.
damage to 1 and then 1
Yeah.
damage to its controller? How much better would that be if that had trample too?
Yeah.
So it goes 4 damage to the creature, but I'm targeting a 3, so you actually
Yeah.
take 2 damage instead of just 1.
I think out of the mechanics in Unstable, that one is the most realistic. It's the most like it's the spell that I would say that has the best chance of making it into black border.
Yeah. It definitely wasn't a completely insane spell.
Yeah.
I am being informed it is Chandra's Outrage, and it actually does 4 damage to a creature and then 2 to its controller, which is close to what I said, but not quite the same thing. Would someone please stop using memory lapse? All right. So trample on spells I think would be fairly intuitive.
Yeah.
Any other mechanics?
Are we talking about that would be
Cool from
That would be
Unstable.
cool
that
to
would-
stuff from Unstable that you would throw into Standard. Like, I guess this Standard environment, although, because doesn't Timur Energy run a couple of direct damage removal spells?
Timur Energy.
Yeah.
They're running the their energy burn spell. I
Harness
forget-
with-
harness
har-
lightning.
harness
Yeah,
lightning.
Yeah,
harness
that
lightning.
would have been scary with Trample.
Yeah, that'd be a little too powerful with trample.
Yeah. The good thing about Kaladesh is looking at all of the things that utilize energy, the ways that you could abuse it by cantripping things to get energy, flickering, copying, whatnot. The R&D did a good job of making sure that there was no direct life loss to players or damage to players, because I feel that that's one way that would have just taken the energy way out of context. You could have easily closed out games with those kind of spells, and they made them only hit creatures, which is good.
Yeah.
So trample on Harness Lightning would be absurd.
Yeah, I
Would
think
be
any
game
kind
ending.
of
Yeah.
I think any kind of burn spell that where you can amplify it, like give it an X cost, like a fireball kind of thing, would be a little too powerful with trample. Something like a bolt, I think would be interesting with trample, like lightning bolt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could see that.
Something where it's a fixed amount of damage. That's definitely something that would be decent. I think also it would be interesting to put on a board wipe, because then it would be hitting both players.
Ooh.
How so?
Because so you would cast it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it would do 3 damage to each creature, right? That both players control, and it's trample. So your opponent has 4 creatures that are 1/1s, and you have 2 creatures that are 2/2s. So you would take 2 because that's what wasn't required to kill it.
Ooh.
And then your
that,
opponent
like,
would take.
printing very strong damage spells, but have them have a downside.
Yeah, so the downside would be trample, right? You're going to get a little bit in on your opponent, kind of like, not burn at the stake, but...
Like Anger the Gods with trample.
Yeah, and
Oh,
Anger of the Gods
wow.
with trample would hurt.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like a
But
token deck.
You would still be pretty playable, because the downside is you're taking damage. The upside is so's your opponent, especially
Yeah.
if they have a lot of tokens.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and if you built your deck right and you played it at the right moment, it would like you said, it would be a huge blowout.
Like, I'd lose my 1 Snapcaster to your 4 creatures and take the 2 damage so that you take 5, right? Like,
Right.
that's fine by me.
Yeah.
But it's not super broken, because, like, if I'm running against Burn, like, especially Modern Burn, I'm probably already sitting on, like, 5 life, and you've got a bolt in hand. No thank you.
Yeah, exactly. And it punishes those go wide strategies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any other mechanics that you guys would like to see in Black Border from Unstable?
Would like to see. Wait, so we talked about trample.
Yeah,
Mike
we-
talked about
yeah,
trample.
yeah.
Justin,
Yeah.
did you have any that you like?
I also like the trample on instant sorceries. I think that's the most feasible out of them. Mm-hmm. I think if done well, I think host and augment would be really fun in a Black Border set. It'd be a nightmare to draft, but I think
Yeah.
it'd be really fun to see in a Black Bordered set.
I don't think it would necessarily be horrible. I would, if it were me, it would just be one of those sets where I would put that in as the extra, kind of like how flip cards were the extra
That's true,
in
yeah.
in Innistrades,
Yeah.
because then
So
that
make
way,
make the host card a normal card, and then the augment card like in the flip.
yeah,
in the flip card spot.
right?
Okay.
And so then you're not getting too many. The downside is you would probably need to do, because only having 1, The problem with that, well, actually, you know what? It wouldn't be that much of a problem. The only downside is if 2 players in a pot of 8 were drafting it, there would be no breaking into it.
Yeah. Like, I do like the mix and match nature of host and augment. Like, it's sort of like putting together Legos. Like, you augment it to, one, make it a stronger creature, but also make this ability advantageous for the position that you're currently in.
Right.
So I did like that a lot. I felt that it was a little underpowered and unstable compared to the other mechanics, but I think it's something that would be interesting to explore again.
I totally agree with that, and it's cool that the hosts are still playable on their own, so they're not dead cards. Like, the augment cards are literally dead if you don't have a host.
Exactly,
On other mechanics that I could see feasibly, they have printed black bordered coin flip cards, and I know they're really kooky and some people don't acknowledge them, but I think dice rolling is not that far off from flipping a coin, and as long as you didn't make it too many dice, like X amount of dice, if it was just a die or 2 6-sided die, those are easy to resolve. They don't bog down the game as much. Some coin flipping cards were literally flip until you hit heads once or tails at the same time. So, like, dice rolling doesn't need to be as long as that.
I mean, a lot of players already roll dice as a coin flip anyways.
Right. It's natural.
Like,
it's
heads is like odds is even, tails is odd, or like even is heads, or
And you can make it pretty fair because you could just do something like you roll it and then it's that many 1/1 counters on the creature.
Yeah.
That's not a crazy mechanic. You make it an ETB that happens once.
Yeah.
And, so resetting the creature just resets also the number of 1/1 counters, so it's not going to be super hard to break, but it's still potentially an aggressive creature because if it's a 3-drop 1/1 that you roll a die and you add that many 1/1 counters, you're on average getting a 4/4 for 3. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a good rate.
But it's not horribly broken. It has no other abilities. Even if you get a 7/7 for 3, like, that's fantastic. You still don't have trample.
True, it's just vanilla.
And it brings a little bit of variance in for a lot of the players that enjoy that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like a little bit of luck, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Without being terribly swingy. You could have it be a 0/0 and you roll the die, right?
Yeah.
So it's not going to die, but you're on average going to get a 3/3 for 3.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're going to get a 6/6 for 3, and sometimes you're going to get a 1/1 for 3.
Yeah.
Right. And if it was something like you were talking about, it'll always enter with the counters. If it was something else that you could abuse, like cards or maybe destroying permanents, you could make it a cast trigger so that when you flicker it, you wouldn't just get to re-roll for free. You would only be getting it one time when you cast it. So you'd have to bounce it, get it back from your graveyard to your hand to ensure the shenanigans. Not ensure, because we play Commander. There's always a way around everything. To limit the shenanigans that you could do in Draft or Standard.
Yeah. I do like those mechanics. I feel that those 3 that we've talked about are the most feasible to see in Black Border. Like, a triple strike is possible. I just think it's a boring mechanic.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
If they said, oh, it's now we're gonna start printing in Black Border, I wouldn't really bat an eye. I'm like, but there's other stuff you could have done that's more exciting.
Like Squirrel Link.
No, we can't. We shouldn't see Squirrel Link. Like, Squirrel Link should not be okay in Black Border. It's so strong.
I used to be really, really up on doing a last strike type mechanic. That used to be something that I was actually a pretty strong champion of. But having actually seen it a little bit in play, last strike is pretty.
It's strong if they don't have blockers or if you have evasion.
It's not very good.
It's also not very fun.
Yeah, it's another damage step, and there's already 2 of those. I don't feel like we needed a third. So yeah, I understand why that's not a thing, or why that's not a thing that's likely to make it over into Black Border. But I would love to see. I like abnormal enchantments / artifacts. That's the
Animate Library.
The Animate Library is my favorite because it is totally not busted and is absolutely fair in Commander compared to a lot of other cards in the meta. Up yours, Kyle. And the Sprockets, I like the idea of adding in that extra deck that you have without making it something that counts against your card total, but it gives you kind of a cool... It definitely feels... Because it feels very mechanical. It feels very...
I did like playing with contraptions. I don't think it's something we really need to see in Black Border. I think it adds like it adds another step to your turn that just takes forever. And there were so many times where people just miss their crank trigger. It just added like it is another layer of complexity, and it was very fun for the unstable format. I just don't think it's something we need to see. I don't think it's something I want to mess around with in 60 card.
I could see something similar happening that would be fun, and you just make it a little bit smaller. It would basically be instead of having as many as you want, you would have 2 to 3 slots, and it would be kind of like emblems where you assemble a contraption, the contraption flips over and attaches itself to one of your 3 slots and bumps off whichever one you previously had. And it's just a static effect that's not necessarily super powerful on its own. That could be a much more interesting way to do it with a lot less bookkeeping.
I think my biggest concern is it adds a second deck. And it for a lot of players, it's just stuff that like most players just don't want to think of when they're playing. There's already enough to think about in Magic without adding a second deck.
Yeah. Also, I just realized we actually already have seen an Animate Library-like card in Standard. Form of Dinosaur. Enchant player has 15 life, and then at the beginning of the turn, they deal 15 damage to target creature, and then that creature deals its damage back to that player.
That reminds me a lot of Hearthstone.
Yeah.
Like in Hearthstone, you have the weapons where you can equip it to your hero, and your hero can fight on your behalf as well, but any damage that the hero takes while fighting is dealt to your total life total.
Yeah.
That's very much like Form of the Dinosaur, is Hearthstone weapons. And I think it is really cool. I would like them to explore it with more in the future with more the different colors, because it doesn't add too much to the game. It's just an upkeep trigger.
Yeah. And so I feel like that's a lot like Animate Library, because it's not something we've really seen before. We've seen enchanting players mostly in the curses, but that's something that you're enchanting yourself, and you are specifically burninating the countryside with your flame breath or your dinosaur face or
it's
whatever.
also not out of the question. Like they turned BFM into a black border mechanic using Meld, and then they also did the Infernal Spawn of Evil. And they used that mechanic, and they brought it back in the newest set as Tetsamok, where you reveal it from your hand and it does something.
Oh yeah. You are right. Same with Super Haste.
Yeah, they did Super.
I mean, it's not quite
called,
Super Haste, but
it's not called Super Haste, but it functions pretty much similar.
Because they did Super Haste, and then what came out a couple of sets later, if I've got my timelines right, is the not Forbid,
Formidable?
Forsworn. From Ravnica, the Azorius ability where you revealed the thing from your hand.
Oh, yeah, Forecast.
Forecast.
Yeah.
You played an alternative cost, and you got a minor ability related to the card.
Yes.
So we got something that was a lot like Super Haste, except instead of having to cast it, you do have to pay a cost for the card, but it's also not the full ability.
Yeah. I think what would be interesting is seeing a return to Dash, but make it more like the ninja card from Unstable.
Ninjutsu?
Yeah, well, not ninjutsu, but you can attack with it from your hand.
Oh,
right.
Yes. Masterful Ninja.
Yeah, Masterful. Because that card reminded me a lot of Dash.
He is actually in the card art. I found him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can see his feet under one of the banners that's hanging down.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
But I think that would be also an interesting mechanic. Like they'd have to work very hard not to break it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's a very strong ability.
I can see that getting broken pretty easily, unfortunately. Yeah. But yeah, it does remind me a lot of Dash. And I mean, the thing is, we got no. I'm thinking Raid, never mind. My bad. I'm confusing my sets now. I'm an old man.
But yeah, Unstable I felt was the most toned down compared to the other unsets. It was the most, they specifically made it to be draftable, and they did a lot to make it so it wasn't as shenanigans heavy as the other sets. As the other unsets, yeah.
No, I definitely feel like it benefited the most. And I mean, we've gushed about it before. But it's definitely, he's like right there. Yeah. Okay. So sorry, we've gushed about it before. We'll continue to gush about it. They actually, by the way, confirmed they are doing reprints. So those of you who were holding on to boxes in the hopes that it was going to be $20 in 10 years, or $20 a pack in 10 years, you're probably still right. Go ahead and do that.
But remember, Magic doesn't look at the second economy, so
yeah. Wizards doesn't look at the second economy because all cards are the same to them. They do, but they don't claim they do because the government has lawyers.
Yeah.
And speaking of Gush, like Justin pointed out earlier, if they printed a popper staple like Gush as an F&M promo, that would be super sweet.
That would be really cool.
Yep. They don't even have to do it about the price. It already fits their previous assertions that everything's worth the same, right?
Yeah.
Because in the past they've made F&M promos, the reprints as uncommon. I think it'd be really cool to see common reprints as F&M promos. Bring them back.
Even just doing reprints that you can't play in standard, just because. Oh God,
when's the last time we got Terramorphic Expanse?
We're gonna have to do an episode on what makes a good promo at some point. I feel like that would be a really fun episode because this is the second time we're getting off topic.
Hey man, I'm really pissed about the tokens, man.
No, I am too. This isn't even. This is the second time today. It's the second episode too where we've gotten off topic, talking about
F&M
the lackluster
promos,
F&M promos because
it's a real issue that we need to talk about as a community.
Yeah.
So we bring back playable cards.
We should definitely do an episode talking about what makes
put that
a
on the
playable
list.
promo. Yeah, we'll put that on the list.
We have a huge backlog of like topic ideas,
and we do. Believe me, we're filming a filler episode next week, which is going to be super exciting, and we're going to get one of my buddies on that as well as my other two buddies who are with us right now. And so that's going to be very interesting. But what I want to ask you guys is the audience at home, not necessarily you, Mikey, although I do appreciate your opinion, is, so we've talked about some of the abilities we'd like to see make its way into standard and into a black bordered set. What would you want to see? And it doesn't even have to be an ability that has previously shown up in UN. What would you like to see? What ideas do you have for stuff that they could put into sets? And let us know in the comments. We'll probably get back to it at a later day. We'll do a video about it because we really do enjoy talking about that. All three of us are definitely fluff guys, and we have our own
We're
ideas.
big into Vorthos.
Yeah, definitely.
That's one of the things coming on down the pipeline at some point. Oh man, I would really love a 1920s themed set with like magic machine guns.
But I mean, like, that would be really cool. Like, if you've seen the sort of lackluster Netflix movie Bright, I think that'd be really cool. Like, I really like it when they mix fantasy with modern day.
Yeah. Like,
seeing an orc drive a car. Like, that'd be interesting. Like,
I mean, I wouldn't know. I don't know if I'd go to modern day, and this is something again we'll probably get into later. But I definitely they did their take on Wizards has been really good recently, except for Phoenix's, about hitting different mythologies and representing them well. And I'm not just talking about their take on steampunk with Kaladesh, but the fact that steampunk wasn't Victorian. It was Middle Eastern and Indian.
That was really cool. I really liked that.
And it was different.
Kaladesh.
And you had Khans of Tarkir, which
very Asian, Mongolian.
Yeah. We see Chinese, we've seen Japanese.
Yeah.
But we don't see Vietnamese, we don't see Indian. I mean, now we have, but we hadn't at the time. We hadn't seen Mongolian. Yeah. Nobody talks about Mongolian. I'd love to see what they do
with the revisit to Kamigawa.
Oh yeah.
Like, because Kamigawa was very like by the books Japanese.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be really cool to see how they spice it up on a revisit.
You know what? You know what I would love to see would be a set where they go to a world where nobody uses magic.
There's
still all the fantastical races potentially.
Make like a swords and sorcery, like a very King Arthur type of
Conan, Conan, right?
Conan.
Where like there is magic.
Yeah.
But the magic is like so obscure. It could basically either be somebody dabbling in science or like really good sleight of hand.
My big thing is I'm a big
God.
fan of like
That'd be cool.
I'm a big fan of stuff like the mythology of Bright or the comic book fables. I love it when they mix magic and technology.
Yep. Alright.
For me, I would like to see them going back to sort of like an onslaught kind of thing with guns.
Oh,
So
yeah.
magic versus pretty much technology, like an orc versus a tank, or a machine gun versus a sorcerer, or something like that.
Yeah, that would definitely be almost. You could even almost do a Harry Potter style feel.
Yeah.
I mean, but this is all for like
Yeah,
brainstorming
we
for
need to-
that future episode
I was gonna say we need to stop now 'cause-
before we give away too much.
Yeah, before we just have the episode now.
But I guess in the future, what we'll do is we'll bring mechanics that we can make up our own mechanics for that set. We can even make up a story for that set, like
Yeah.
maybe
that would be interesting.
either the Gatewatch can visit or just new characters, all new characters.
Please,
I would
no
love
more-
something other than
no
the
more
Gatewatch.
Gatewatch. I'm so
Yeah,
done with their story.
Like I liked it in the beginning, and then it got a little too much. Like I'm like, oh cool, we have our own like Justice League, and then it got a little too much.
Yeah, if Superman was a neglectful parent, right? Like Jace hasn't gone. Oh man, okay, that's a third episode idea. But yeah, let us know what you think about new mechanics, and we'll do an episode on it. We may even include some of your submissions.
I do appreciate how Wizards have a lot of their current, like more recent sets have been very focused on real world mythology, like
and bringing in a lot of those. We've got the Aztecs and the Conquistadors. We don't see Conquistadors a lot, so it's good that we've got all that. I'm very excited to see what they do next. We love Wizards. We wouldn't be here otherwise because we do love talking about Magic and we love playing Magic.
Yes.
But that's all for future episodes, right?
Yes, and with that, I do believe it is time to remove all damage counters, reset the applicable board states,
Discard your hand.
discard down to 7, and thank you guys for listening to the cleanup step. Have a good day, and we hope to see you in the store.